Hello, this is Leisha Holmes of Key Recruitment, and I'm thrilled to welcome to our channels today a very familiar face to my fellow neighbours of workplace in Manchester, but it's a new face to our media connections. This is Arthur Ward of KKANDOO English. Hello to you, Arthur. How are you?
Good morning, and as I say, welcome to my kitchen.
Welcome to the heart of KKANDOO English. Well, look, I'm familiar with who you are. Obviously, that's why I've invited you on today. But for those who aren't yet familiar with what you do, would you like to give us an overview of what your business is and why we've invited you on today?
Yeah, in simple terms, the business KKANDOO English, we're like an educational consultancy, really, but our core business has been, anyway, supplying English language teachers to China. There are many places where you can teach English language these days, but China's always been our core and our focus. So certainly up till this year, obviously, that's what we've been doing. And yes, we've had to make a few little changes now, obviously.
Absolutely, which we will come on to. But just go back a step. So how did you form the business? Where did this all come from? Give us some context.
Okay, very briefly. So I don't know. I've worked for years in software, and after 20 odd years, I've still got this small software consultancy, which I'm sort of running down. And after 20 odd years of software, I was, fairly bored with it, I have to be honest. And I was looking for something different. And I acted as a broker for a while, putting people together, looking for, services, products and so on. And one of the places I did it with some people was in China. And totally out of the blue one day, one of the partners I went with over there, very bright young woman, she asked me if I could maybe help them with something else. And I said, what's that? And it was recruiting English language teachers for China, which her and a colleague were just setting up. I knew a little bit about it. My son had taught in South Korea. I had some friends who'd been international recruitment and so on. So I said, yeah, let's give it a go. It sounded interesting. So I thought, well, I'll bust it for 6 months, see how it goes. And at the end of that time, I thought, yeah, I'll do this. Let's do this. It's time to do it properly.
Fantastic. So when was that? What year was that?
So that's just over 4 years ago now.
Okay. And so you've had four years of, understanding the market. And how many times have you been over to China? What's your familiarity?
A couple of times. I mean, normally I would have been due to go this year. I know some other people, some of the English people who work in the same area, they go over quite often, and I usually, try and fit in with when they're going there. So you've got some company, out and, have a few drinks and try the Chinese food and all that sort of thing. Yeah. So, and they went very early this year, and I couldn't go at the time, and at that time already there was a problem becoming apparent. So
right, okay, which leads very nicely into what we're talking about. So this was at the beginning of 2020. So what actually happened, and then how did COVID-19 affect KKANDOO English?
Okay, well, you have to think of it in China, for example, where we do it. It's Chinese New Year, the Spring Festival in January. So you always have a quiet time, couple of weeks, while they go off or visiting families and stuff. And just before that, of course, the news started coming out about the COVID virus and so on. Mm-hmm. And I sat down in the beginning of January. I remember I was in workplace, speaking to the bods there, and I said, you know what, this is going to be a serious problem. I can feel it. And then on the 17th of January, they closed Wuhan down. So it was obvious sitting there that this was going to be a major problem. It was a case of thinking for how long. I did all the obvious things, sat down, looked at your budget, cut it down. It was a case of sitting there like anyone else in any other business and say, can I sit this out? Is it going to be, a few months? So it's a case of sitting it out and stuff, or whatever, because at that time they did it. And of course, it just kept moving on. People kept coming to me from China saying in April it'll be okay. And, and then it was June and then it was September and so on. So, the first problem was the schools and the universities closed down. So right away that closed that market. Right, okay. At that point, probably saw April would be back. Of course, it didn't happen. And, along the way, as I say, there were a few sort of false dawns, and then eventually some of the schools and universities started going back. And I remember speaking to someone saying, this looks like it might be sorting itself out now. About 2 days later, they closed the borders and weren't letting people in. They closed the consulates. They were doing no more visas. Maybe something we should have done here, actually, but that's another subject.
That's another concept, possibly true.
Yeah. So basically, that meant the market was dormant pretty much for 6 months, let's say. So, you know, eventually in September, the universities and schools started going back and so on. But the consulates, the visas, all the things you had to do, they were still closed. They weren't issuing any new ones. Teachers were stuck there. Teachers who got jobs.
If you're an English teacher over there, you're an expat. Did you get home, or were you allowed to stay?
No, some didn't get home.
Right.
And they were stuck there for weeks. And the shutdown then was very much with some of them were literally in their apartment for weeks on end. You know, in some of the countries there. It fixed them now, and they say everything's sort of almost back to normal. But they just didn't want us coming in now and so on. No. So in terms of the effect on you know the business, as I say, you know, for 6 months in reality it was pretty much dormant. And so at that point, that's when you have to sit and think, okay, what do we do now?
What's your plan? And I do remember seeing you in workplace, and I remember just looking at your face thinking, is he hiding a multitude of sort of problems here? And because obviously your business is all China, and I think this was probably just before it became apparent that we would end up going into a lockdown. So what have you done since January to ensure that you've still got an income and a revenue stream for the business? How have you pivoted?
Well, like I said before, it's a case of deciding, you know, can we sit this out? It depends how long it's going to go.
Yeah.
What am I going to do in the meantime to do it? So I fell back a little bit on, apart from doing a lot of decorating at home, I fell back a little bit at,
which is very dangerous apparently.
Very dangerous. And I fell back a little bit on my old software clients. I actually went back to a couple of software clients, including Capita, who obviously were in workplace. You know, asked if there was some software I knew about, and asked me when to do that. And blow me, 2 of them came back and gave me contracts. So particularly Capita, who once told me they'd never work with me again. That's a long story, I'll tell you that. But so that gave me leeway, you know. And in terms with you know, sitting it out and the general financial cutting it down and so on, that gave me leeway. Honestly, probably through to March, the end of March next year, one way and another.
Fantastic.
So that allowed me to sit and say, it's time to sit and think about this a little bit. What's going to do now? You know, it's clear. I mean, by then there was a problem all over the place. So it's a case of saying, what do we do now?
So is there a demand for English teachers in other countries? Is that something that you've looked at?
There is, but 2 things. First of all, to me, a lot of them are sort of small markets. I always felt China was the place. It's massive. The people there, education is really important for the kids and so on. They'll spend the money. And to be honest, as things went on across the world, of course, the virus spread in other places as well. So even if you wanted to do that, it was no longer an option.
And what about online? I mean, can you place these people to teach online with so much on webinars these days?
You're right. There was a rise, obviously, in online. People, schools started trying to do that. People started trying to do that. 2 things. It needs a bit of a setup. It's not quite the same thing. And to be perfectly blunt about it, the commercial returns for a company like us is you really need to be shifting a lot of numbers to do that. And quite frankly, that's not what we do.
No, of course it's not. It's specific skill sets going into specific schools and universities, I expect. So what does the future look like? You've said you've got enough work software-wise till March next year. I mean, no one can possibly predict what's going to happen in 2021. But are you strategizing for Kandoo English to wait and see what happens with the pandemic, or are you just going to focus on other revenue streams? No,
I think the time for waiting to see how it goes is over, to be honest. I mean, like we've spoken about before as well, it was how are you going to pivot on this and change, and that's what I had to look at, a new model, you know, and so on. It's not something. I mean, I would always say it's not something to be frightened of in a way. I mean, I've always done it in my work career anyway. I mean, as a student, I studied law. By the time I'd finished that, I didn't want to do that. I worked in finance and contracts at the BBC in London for 4 years, and then I dropped into software. that involved me going away for 6 months and doing some extra skills as well. So, you know, and now I'm doing this. So it's not something, you know, that I've not done in the past. But, you know, I would say the thing is you don't have to be frightened about it. You know, you have to, sometimes that's the way to do it. And I got to that point where I thought there's no point in wasting any more time thinking about, is this going to come back? Because it's not in the same way. That's not to say it'll come back in a smaller way, but it'll come back.
Yeah.
You know, and it was time to sit down and say, spend your time now looking at a new model, what you're going to do. That's what I did. The market, in a way, it's just, you don't have to have drastic changes either, necessarily. And I think you do need to try and hold on to the partners and the people you've done in the past to make use of that. And so that's what I did. It's a sort of nuanced change in a way. And in China, it's simple. You've got stuff going that way into China, or you've got stuff coming this way into the UK and the rest of the world. And in simple terms, my new model is a little bit of the old one, but more of stuff coming this way into the UK. And that's like consultancy, it's like mentoring, it's like international student recruitment, it's like helping them with exams, it's summer schools, it's cultural stuff. And that's what I've started doing. You know, I've just signed up probably my first new partner over here, an education company called Libra Education in London. And so it'll be a bit of this and a bit of that. That's the plan.
I love it. That's a really good strategy. I mean, for our audience that are watching and listening to this, who are probably nodding along as I am, thinking, you know, it's true. We can't hold on to the past. If you haven't already kept yourself moving forward, you're probably going to make yourself very invaluable to your current employer, or as a business leader, you're probably sat there panicking as the UK enters its second formal, or sorry, not the UK, England is entering its second formal lockdown as we record this week. So what would your top tips be for people watching and listening who have to think about what they're going to do? Because you've clearly got a lot of skills, you've got a lot of experience, and you've got other areas that you can explore revenue. So what would your advice be? In terms of looking at new skills, and that's difficult to say depending on what people say. I mean, going back to what I said before, I think the first thing I would say in a nutshell is don't be frightened of doing it. Good. You know, often it's a good thing. Yeah. Secondly, you don't have to make a drastic change. You know, you don't have to go from being a recruiter to being a ballet dancer. You know, what you need to do is try and use all those skills and connections that you've already got, if possible, in terms of what you know, what you can do and so on. Build a new model from that, you know. But like I say, you just got to be brave about it a little bit, you know, and go and do a new model, but use what you can from before. Yeah, so utilize those skills. I love it. Those are 3 really good tips, and it's wonderful to see you looking so well. And I look forward to seeing you, because obviously we will still continue to go into workplace. So I think we caught up with you a couple of weeks ago, if our dates collide. So we'll definitely put links on there for anyone that's looking for a very innovative office. It's very COVID safe office space. It's a wonderful hub, isn't it, Arthur? We love it there. So yeah, and it's safe, to be fair. Just, you know, a quick word on the office, to be fair to them as well. I mean, sometimes my son at home says, why are you going in there? And I said, it's safer there than it is here. Yeah, true. Definitely. I mean, definitely safer than your house, given that you've given yourself an injury doing home improvement. So definitely don't follow Arthur for that. But look, that's been really useful, and I think it's really insightful, because obviously China's where it all started. So you were almost at the head, you were at the start of the curve before we even knew that it was. Yeah, I mean, just to finish very briefly, I always remember that week. I sat there. I definitely got this feeling in the office from the people on it and people like yourself right at the beginning when I first mentioned it, that, you know, I could see people were thinking, oh shit, this is going to be, this is going to be, this is going to, you know, poor Arthur's got a real problem there. Of course, within about 4 weeks, everyone had a problem. Everyone's problem. That's the way it goes. Definitely. Well, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And we'll make sure that your LinkedIn information and website information is on our post as well, so that people can follow you as well. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's been no problem. It was a pleasure. All right. See you soon, Lucia.